Welcome, Bronco Nation, my game review for Boise State versus Fresno State. Now, I don't know which one of you guys ticked off Santa Claus. My guess is it's the ones who were cheering when Hank Bachmeier was taken off the game with injury versus UT Martin. But somebody messed up because we did not get what we asked for Christmas this year. Boise State losing 16-28 versus Fresno State. I want the theme of this video, however, to be perspective, okay? This is a Boise State team that started off the season 2-2. A loss to UTEP, a loss to open the season at Oregon State, and then a loss to UTEP. New offensive coordinator, new quarterback comes in, and yet this team finished off in the Mountain West Championship game. Let's not forget that last season, Boise State went 7-5. They weren't even close to sniffing the Mountain West Championship game. And this year, they go and actually make it into the Mountain West Championship game. Could they have won this game? Did we want them to win this game? Yes. But the fact that they got here in the second year under Andy Avalos with so much that happened this year is a win. That is a fantastic job by this team that should not be underappreciated. The fact that they were able to get through everything that happened this season and make it to the Mountain West Championship game. So the perspective needs to be the fact that even though this team had all the odds against them, even though this team should have been struggling to make bowl eligibility, this team was able to turn around a 2-2 season, finish off the year 7-1 prior to the Mountain West Championship game, and make it into the Mountain West Championship game versus Fresno State. This is a young team. There's a lot of experience that they can build on here. The perspective should definitely be key when you're looking at the offense. I mean, you look at a freshman in Taylor Green in his first year as a starting quarterback, takes Boise State to the Mountain West Championship game. I know that has kind of been the expectation for Boise State fans, that they're going to get to the conference championship, that they're going to go undefeated, that they're going to go play the New Year's Six. But that is classic Boise State. That has not been recent Boise State. Boise State, though they have done a pretty good job of getting to the Mountain West Championship game 6 times, they have struggled to get there. It has not been an easy path. They haven't had any undefeated seasons, at least not since 2010. They haven't had any undefeated seasons. They haven't been the ones in contention, besides in 2014 for the New Year's Six. They have been struggling to get to the Mountain West Championship games with healthy, strong, experienced rosters. This young, fresh, extremely talented roster made it to the Mountain West Championship game in their first season and has a good chance of getting to a 10-win season overall in the bowl game. So that should be the perspective. We're going to grade all these units: offense, defense, special teams. We're going to look at the 3 keys of the game, how Boise State fulfilled or did not fulfill by 3 keys of the game. And there's going to be some tough grades thrown around. There's going to be some very heavy criticisms thrown around in this video. However, that should not in any way obscure the fact that this team's effort to get to this game, the fact that they played as competitively as they did, especially on defense, in this game with such a young team and so many guys out with injuries. The fact that they were able to do that this season is absolutely incredible. I want that to be the perspective as we talk about these units. Well, talking about a unit that's going to have a lot of heavy criticism, the offense today. This was not the Boise State offense that took Fresno State on at the beginning of the season or early on in the season here and beat them and put up 300-plus yards rushing against them. That was not the offense that we saw today. Not just that they didn't perform the same way, but literally it wasn't the same offensive game plan. It wasn't the same offense that we ran. A lot of fans are questioning that, and I am too. Boise State's offense in this game, 321 yards overall, 175 yards passing, only 146 yards rushing. 111 of those rushing yards came in the first half. In the second half, Boise State only had 35 yards rushing. George Holani, 10 carries in the first half. Finishes the game with 13. The fact that he went a game with only 13 carries is absolutely mind-boggling, and the fact that he only had 3 in the second half, Genty, 5 carries in the first half, 2 in the second half. Boise State completely abandoned their running game in the second half, despite the fact that the running game was having success. It wasn't dominating, but Boise State, especially when they ran outside, pretty much every time that they ran the ball outside, they were picking up 7-10 yards on each run. Running up the middle, even picking up a few yards, that wasn't being super effective, but outside runs were gashing this Fresno State defense. And Boise State comes out in the second half with a quarterback who is struggling, a quarterback who went 11 of 25 in the first half, a 44% completion percentage. He goes 11 of 25 passing in the first half. He's clearly struggling. He's not settled into the game. He's overthrowing players. He's underthrowing players. Whether it's the deep ball, whether he's overthrowing McAllister deep or he's underthrowing McAllister on a short little slant on 4th down that should have been a catch. or not a catch, but it should have been a completion. McAllister was open, but was well behind him. He's underthrowing players on the deep pass. He's overthrowing them on the deep pass. He was totally off his game. This did not look like Utah State Taylen Green or even the last half of the season in Taylen Green. This looked like Oregon State Taylen Green. He was clearly off of rhythm in this game. And instead of saying, okay, our quarterback is struggling, but we have an effective run game that has worked all season, let's settle him into the game. Let's establish the running game. Maybe use his legs a little bit in the running game with backing up off of the running backs. Maybe call a different running play for him other than pull to the outside, QB draw left or right. Maybe call something a little bit different that gets some blockers out there in front for him versus just counter to the outside. Maybe do something to get him into the flow of the game. Some nice short, easy passes to the running backs. Something like that to get him into the flow. No, Boise State comes out and says, we're going to keep pushing down the field. The cure for a bad arm is just to keep forcing that arm. Forcing the deep ball, throwing the short passes, but not really like the short passes, bubble screens kind of like right in front of you. I mean, we're talking like to the outside where you have to have good timing, which Taylen Green didn't have today as well. Just an overall frustrating performance by Boise State. Yeah, they put up some more passing yards in the second half there, but it was not a good performance for Boise State overall in this one, and that goes on the play calling. And I think the reason that this happened is because Dirk Cutter's smart. He says, well, First off, Dirk Cutter is smart, and he wants to be able to present a balanced offensive attack. That's what he wants to be able to present. He's leaned on the running game because that's what's worked, but the passing game has shown some promise. He comes in and says, okay, I want to give the defense something balanced to look to. But another factor here is that last time Boise State, Fresno State played, they destroyed them on the running game. Dirk Cutter knows that the defense is going to be dialed into stopping the run. So he says, okay, we're probably not going to be able to do that again on the ground. We need to focus on the pass more. In this case, however, Boise State was having success on the ground. When Dirk Cutter saw that Boise State was having success on the ground, that his quarterback was struggling, he should have gone back to what worked, just like in the San Diego State game. Boise State's offense, teams know that they're going to run the ball on them, but they haven't been able to stop them this whole season, partially because the running plays are well called. They give you a balanced look of different ways that they're going to attack you, whether it's zone, whether it's counter, whether it's a run upside, inside, whether it's pitch. They do a great job of giving you lots of different things to look at in the running game. But on the other end, you also have three very, very talented, two incredible NFL-level running backs and a very good running back from injury in Noah. You have three running backs to present them with, and they are just hitting you the whole game, and they're fresh, and they never get tired, and you get worn down on defense. Boise State should have run. They run-based offense, and they should have especially done in the second half when the passing game was not working. The fact that Boise State would have success in the running game, they break out, 20-yard run or 15-yard run or something like that, and then they'd go to the pass. Or they'd swap out the running back. That's another thing. Boise State, it's almost like you have too many players. You want to get them all in the game, and you want to keep building on that momentum and energy by just having fresh guys out there. But sometimes you need to let a running back settle into the game a little bit, especially when they pop off a big run. Give him the ball again. He's testing the defense. He's getting the feel for it. Give him the ball again and let him come around the outside. Anytime a running back had a long run, there was a new running back out there every single time. We've seen it earlier this season that's happened, and it was happening again in this game for Boise State. So there was just no consistency in the play calling as far as pushing the ground game. When you had the ground game having success, they were going away from it and going to the passing game or putting new running backs out there who now had to settle into the game a little bit. And it was just this constant choppy offense back and forth. And even though there were times, even when Boise State was able to find openings in the passing game when wide receivers were open, Taylen Green couldn't hit them. So part of it was the play calling, part of it was the quarterback, but then that goes back to the play calling, because if you're seeing that your quarterback is struggling to complete the plays that you're giving him, you need to shift your offense so that you give him something that works. And you need to work with your strength, and that it did not happen today. Genty had 7 carries for 32 yards, 4.6 yard average per carry. Halani had 13 carries for 74 yards, 5.7 yards average per carry. Neither of these running backs were struggling, and Boise State completely 20 carries between both of those guys. Are you kidding me? Boise State completely giving up on the running game here, especially in the second half. A little bit of that was situational. Boise State having to get it back into it quickly, but Boise State let themselves get into that hole early in the first half and then gave themselves no options where they had to go to the passing game. 17 out of 38 passing for Taylen Green, 175 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. This was a bad game for Taylen Green, but I think he was put in a bad situation by the offensive play calling, which is so unfortunate because obviously we are all so grateful to Dirk Cutter. He has been the reason that Boise State was in this Mountain West Championship game to begin with. 7-1 under him. His offensive play calling has revolutionized this team, given them something exciting, giving them something that works with Andy Avalos' vision. He has been the reason for Boise State's success, the reason for Taylor Green's progression. Everything that Boise State has this season is due to Dirk Cutter and his execution of this offense. So it is really unfortunate that he came in. I think on paper it probably looked like a good game plan, but he was just stubborn with it. He's a great offensive coordinator. He can adapt. He should have adapted in this game when he saw the game plan he came in with wasn't working. That didn't happen in this one. Boise State, unfortunately, falling to Fresno State 16-28. Offensive grade in this one is going to be really low. I mean, I think that goes without saying. I think a D+. I think a D+ offensive grade is well-deserved in this one. You had one touchdown right there at the end, several drives stalling out in the end zone or in the red zone. Boise State having to go to 3 field goals. You only had 5 of 17 completed third downs, and then the offensive play calling this one absolutely disastrous. D+ overall grade for the defense, for the offense. Now, there is a highlight of this game, and that is the defense. The defense played really well. Boise State actually outgained Fresno State in this one because of their defense. 245 yards given up against Fresno State. 17 out of 27 for Jake Haener. Only 184 yards passing. Again, this is a quarterback who has had 300 yards passing every single game except for one the last 5 games. 61 yards rushing for Fresno State, and that was due to a lot of sacks. Fresno State actually put up 83 yards rushing through Mims, but because of a great pressure from Boise State's defense, they were able to get Haener a negative 17 yards rushing to take away from that overall total. So, and to get to 61 yards rushing at all, Fresno State had to give Mims 26 carries. He did manage 2 touchdowns. Most of those were short, though, near the end zone. Overall, Boise State held Fresno State to just 2 offensive scores in this one. I mean, that is an incredible effort. When you look at just what the defense gave up, it's only a 14-point game. Actually, Boise State wins this game if you just can purely consider what the defense truly gave up in this one. So 14 to Now, they did give up 3 touchdowns, but we'll talk about how that third one's not really on them here. But overall, Boise State's defense playing really well. Skinner had a near interception. That would have been a game-changing pick. It would have been a pick 6 for sure. Hit him right in the chest. Definitely had his eyes on the end zone there, his eyes on all the blue and not on the ball. That was unfortunate. I thought he played really hard today, dealing with some injuries throughout the game, kept coming back in. He obviously was motivated and energized to win this game. I put no fault on this loss on the defense. Overall, they had some times where they gave up some runs and stuff, but the defensive game plan coming out with the pressure, Boise State, every single time they ran pressure, they ran it multiple times throughout the game, at least 7+ times where they came out with just sending the house on the blitz. Every single time they did that, except for one, they were able to get the quarterback down or force a short or incomplete pass every single time. He did manage to get 1 pass out for a first down, but that was it when Boise State sent pressure. When they sent 3 or 4 guys, which they kept going back to, and it was frustrating, Fresno State was having success, but also Jake Haener was off in this one. They were saved quite a few times on those reduced pressure packages where Fresno State had open receivers and Jake Haener overthrew them. So getting a little bit of help here from Haener on those bad defensive calls when they weren't sending the pressure. They should have just sent it the whole game. But when they sent the pressure, it was very effective, had multiple drives where they did it 3 times, forced them to 3-and-outs, multiple 3-and-outs here forced by Fresno State, 8 3-and-outs in this game. And only 5 of 15 on third down conversions. So overall, in this game, I think that Boise State came out with a great game plan defensively. I thought the playmakers across the field had a great game despite some injuries, but you had some young guys stepping up. I mean, Cortez Hogan was having a good game. Obercherry was having a good game. You definitely had some guys that have kind of stepped up here towards the end of the season, having a great performance versus Boise State. And this was their best coverage game of the entire season. There weren't a lot of wide open receivers. A couple of touchdown drives that Fresno State was able to score. There were some open opportunities, but it wasn't the whole game. Boise State basically had them shut down, and they reduced the time in the pocket for the quarterback with the blitz. It was a fantastic job defensively overall. So I'm going to give this defensive unit a solid A because, like I said, if you just look up what the pure defense gave up, Boise State wins this game 14-16. However, Boise State gave up 2 touchdowns on special teams, one directly and one indirectly, but it was the reason the drive was extended, leading to a touchdown. Boise State lost this game because of their special teams, which is such a shock because the special teams unit has been such a good point all year, almost always earning a B to an A grade. Their coverage team has given up some opportunities overall, and they haven't done a great job of returning, but Boise State has been pretty locked down in the special teams. And when you talk about the key players, the kicker and the punter for special teams, those guys are not part of this grade. Those guys had a great performance in this one. Jonah Dalmas, 3 out of 3, long of 47. I think he should have been given the opportunity on the first drive that Boise State had in the game. They went for it on 4th down instead of trying a long, it looked like a 52, 53-yard field goal. I think Dalmas could have hit it. He was perfect all game. Some of these longer field goals, like the 47-yarder, looked like it would have been good from 52 at least. So I would love to have seen him get that opportunity. Boise State then only down in this game 19-28. Maybe some different things happen. But overall, Jonah Dalmas, great performance in this one. Also, not just content to get scores with his legs, has to get involved in the game even more. Get a stat in the tackle sheet. Coming up with a big tackle on special teams on a long return that shouldn't have been allowed, but the last line defense coming in and getting the tackle on special teams. Dalmas, a absolute ultimate competitor for Boise State. He had a great game. James Ferguson, 6 punts, 41.3 yard average, 2 inside of the 20. I didn't see any terrible punts all game. Great average over there. He has really progressed. You talk about guys that capture the limelight for progression this year, specifically looking at Taylor Green, but some of the other guys like McAllister coming onto the scene here late. But when I look at guys that I think have had some of the best performance or progression on this team, it's got to be Ferguson. What a year. Starting off, first time playing at the collegiate level here. Aussie punter coming in. He comes first game, not great against Oregon State. Has a couple of down games, even gets replaced for one game by Sean Whale. But then he is able to come in strong here down the stretch, fix his mistakes, become much more accurate with his punts and getting more length in the air. And then when they are able to land on the ground, they're getting some good rollout too. 41.3 average is a very, very healthy average in punts, and I think that we'll continue to see Ferguson improve. I'm excited for his future with this team. But there is a big negative to this special teams performance, which you've already hinted at. That is, one, Dalmas having to make the tackle. That was a 46-yard kick return. But then Boise State gave up a punt return for a touchdown, so direct impact there, giving up a score. That would make it 21-16. And then Boise State gets a roughing the kicker, which was not just execution. Boise State overcommitting there, not getting the ball, ends up underneath the punt returner. Punt returner comes back down on the defender. Letter of the law, it's roughing because he ends up impacting the plant foot. Should it have been called? I don't know. It's one of those questionable ones. A lot of fans on Facebook, on Twitter, very, very upset with that call. However, that player should never have been in that position in the first place because the punter was kicking off or punting from about the midfield region. Boise State was only down by 1 possession at that point. They're going to get the ball back, somewhere between the 30 and the 10 probably, and have plenty of time to go down and score. That is not a place where you send the full out block unit. If you have the punter backed up in the red zone, if you have them backed up somewhere way on their side of the field, that's a good time to send it. But when you have a punt here from the midfield region where they're probably going to end up either kicking it into the end zone or kicking it to about the 10-15, which is decent, that's fine starting position. You get the ball back, you've got a whole drive to go. You don't send the blitz on that, especially, or not the blitz, but the punt block team on that, especially when you're only down 1 possession and you know that you giving up a score there is going to be really hard to overcome with an offense that hasn't shown themselves being productive in this game. That was a terrible, absolutely terrible call to go after the punt in that situation. I have no idea. I think that should definitely be answered in the press conference. I doubt that it will be, but that was a terrible decision. You talk about 2 key moments, well, really 3 key moments that could have changed the game. One was the punt return for the touchdown. There's a lot of mistakes that happen in that, so you can't really look at that as a key moment. But the 2 things that I think could have made the biggest difference in this game would have been, one, if Jale Skinner had been able to hold on to the pick. That's a bang-bang reaction play. You can't really blame him for that, but if he'd been able to hold on to the pick and get that back for a touchdown, that would have changed this game. And then this one, giving up the first down, roughing the kicker, giving up the first down on special teams. That was kind of the nail in the coffin here because then it became a 2-score lead, which ended up being insurmountable here for Boise State to be able to come back and get this game in the end. So special teams, this is terrible because Jonah Dalmas and Ferguson had great games. Because the loss is on the special teams unit, I'm going to give the special teams unit an F overall. Again, Jonah Dalmas, Ferguson, they get A's. But the fact that this unit cost Boise State the game is going to give them an F overall grade for the special teams unit. All right, real quick here, looking at my 3 keys to the game and how Boise State performed against them. Number 1 key was run with it, what works. That's going to be an F. Boise State having success on the ground game, going away from it. Definitely not having success in the passing game. Even if you could argue that the running game wasn't being prolific, they definitely weren't having success in the passing game, and they were showing some momentum in the running game. They focused on the passing game to the detriment of the running game, and it cost Boise State the game in this one. So definite F there with run will it works. Be more creative with Green's legs. Again, another F. I like that they were getting him involved in the running game, but it's the same play every single time. They just reverse which side of the field they're going to go to with it. You know, there was one little wrinkle where instead of pretending to give the ball up off the middle to the running back, they had the running back running to the outside, you know, coming across on a draw to the left side, and then they pull it back and he runs. They did that a couple of times in different directions. That was one little tiny wrinkle. But as far as saying, hey, let's get the fullback out in front and let him get a block in here for Taylor Green, let him work off of the block. Maybe we let him step back to pass and he runs up the middle of the draw. Maybe he scrambles for something. It was the same play over and over again with a little tiny wrinkle where he runs outside. There's a couple of times where I think if he'd been able to push it up inside, he'd been able to get a first down, been able to get some good yardage, maybe break out some other yards, but he's always dancing around back there, and a lot of that's because he's being told to run to the outside. So really poor performance, I think, overall in the play calling for using Green's legs in the running game. You have an incredibly effective runner who's basically another running back there for you. You don't want to put him in harm's way too much, but you've got to use his legs more effectively if you're going to use them in the game. The last key to the game here was commit to the blitz. A. Solid A. Not an A+, because there were some times they kept dropping back into coverage, especially there in the first half. It was a little bit amusing. But in the second half, Boise State definitely committing more to that blitz, and it worked pretty much every time that they went to it. Very, very solid performance by Boise State's defense in this one. Like I said, the one bright spot in what was really kind of overall a very frustrating, disappointing day for this Boise State team. So thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think Boise State's bowl destination is going to be. Obviously, the LA Bowl is off the table, but there's some different ones, some different opportunities that Boise State could go to against some potentially intriguing teams. So this could be a fun season. I mean, not could be. This has been an awesome season, and this will still be a fun bowl season. The fact that Boise State hasn't been to a bowl game since 2019. It's going to be just awesome, whoever they play. I'm excited for whatever the matchup is, and I'll definitely be bringing you a preview of that. Going to try and do that preview with Master Football. Also, Master Football is going to be releasing a video that the two of us did together where we looked at who might be the next Boise State offensive coordinator. A very exciting video, very in-depth video, going through everything that the new offensive coordinator is going to have to work with, how this offense has changed for Boise State, and then a long list of names there about who we think might end up being the next pick, and we narrow it down and give our predictions there for Boise State. So make sure you watch that video. When it comes out, I'll put the link in the description. It should be coming out Sunday or Monday. So again, make sure you watch that video. And then, of course, Bronco Blameyer merch, Bronco Blameyer t-shirts are available online. Link in the description. Make sure you go check those out as well. Well, thanks so much for watching. And as always, go Big Blue!